Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our live broadcast this month. I'm going to take a few seconds just to give you time to, come on in as we, try to get our broadcast started this morning or wherever you are, what time it is, wherever you are in the world. So come on in. Thank you so much for joining. As you're coming in, I do want to note that our comment feature is off, so you might not be able to say hello to me this morning today, but I will feel it in the air. Just a few more seconds. Okay, so I see a few people have been joining us right now. Thank you so much for joining. Just a few more seconds just to see you guys kind of trickle in. Oh, wonderful. We have a good number today. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So again, hello and welcome everyone once again to our monthly broadcast here at Health Carousel International. For our regular viewers, I am a new face. My name is Melissa, and I'm a part of the international recruitment team here at Health Carousel. And for our new viewers, welcome. I'm excited, as you guys are excited, to see what we have in store for you today. But I do want to note, especially for our new viewers, this program is just a way for us to bring all of our international healthcare professionals together and provide you with the right tools and information that you need to help you on your journey to the United States. So definitely take the time to grab your notebook and a pen because we have a lot in store for you today. Just a little housekeeping before we do move on or start with our segment today. As I mentioned earlier, for those that did join in a little bit earlier, our comment feature is off for this broadcast. We are still working on new ways to get your questions answered and to provide you with all the support that you need. So at the end of our broadcast today, you will receive an email with the recording. So you can always choose to respond to that email with your questions. I would recommend, if you are in our program and you have a current assignee, whether it's an international program associate or your international deployment advocate, please reach out to them with your questions. And if you are not a part of our program, please connect with one of our recruiters so that they can also answer your questions. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot in store for you today, and we do have one goal in mind as we prepare for a broadcast, and that is to support you through each stage of your journey to the United States. Our team is here to provide you with a full circle of support, and you will see that today as we cover each segment. So let's get started. All right. So to kick off today's broadcast, we are going to be starting with one of our favorite segments. It's the Employee of the Month. I'm joined by my colleague Presley, who's here to help us celebrate our incredible nurses making a difference. Hi, Presley. Thank you for joining today.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me. It's always an honor to be here, especially when we get to celebrate our incredible nurses in our program who are changing lives across the country.
Awesome. So, all right, Presley, now tell me a little bit about the nurses, that were nominated for this month, and then we can get into the winners.
Absolutely. I am so happy to be here with you today as we recognize our June Employees of the Month. Every month, we take the time to honor international healthcare professionals who are going above and beyond in their roles and living out Health Carousel's mission of improving lives and making healthcare work better. Now, before we reveal this month's winners, let's take a moment to recognize all of our outstanding nominees. Please join me in congratulating Pearl Princess, Sharmila, Christy, Nadia, Marianne, Gritchell, Arcel, and May, Milaneth, and Rika. Each of you were nominated for your incredible dedication, professionalism, and the heart you bring to your work. We're so proud of all that you're doing in your communities. Now, I am thrilled to announce that our June Employees of the Month are, drumroll please, I hope you're excited. They are Milaneth and Rika. Congratulations to you both. Now, let's take a few moments to shine a light on what makes each of these nurses so special. Let's start with Rika. Rika joined Health Carousel because she saw more than just an opportunity. She saw a mission she believed in. From the start, she was drawn to her commitment to ethical recruitment, professional development, and innovation. As a nurse from the Philippines, she stepped out of her comfort zone to build a meaningful career, and she hasn't looked back. Since arriving in the US, Rika has embraced the power of adaptability. Whether it's adjusting to new technologies, patient populations, or work cultures, she's done it all with resilience, openness, and grace. This mindset hasn't made her a better nurse, it's made her a stronger colleague and leader. This is from her nurse manager. For Rika, this award is a symbol of the journey she's taking, of her dedication to safe, high quality care, and her desire to keep growing in every role. And when she's not at work, she's recharging with a bowl of rich, creaming clam chowder, her favorite American comfort food. Congratulations again, Rika. Now, let's talk about Milaneth. Milaneth's story is one of purpose, perseverance, and heart. She chose Health Carousel because, in her words, we offered more than just a job. We offered genuine support. From her mentoring program to continued guidance from her IES and career coach, Milaneth has felt seen and supported every step of the way. She's faced the challenges of cultural transition head on, learning to speak up, trust her clinical instincts, and collaborate confidently in her NICU role. Through it all, she's never lost touch with the Filipino values of resilience and humility, and those strengths shine in everything she does. To Milaneth, this award represents so much more than recognition. It's a tribute to every tiny life she cares for, every long shift she endures, and every quiet act of strength. And when she's off the clock, she's reaching for bold flavors. Juicy hamburgers and Philly cheesesteaks are her go-to American favorites. Now, unfortunately, both are not able to join us today, but we are so proud to have them part of the Health Carousel family, and we know their impact is only just the beginning. Now, back to you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Presley. It was definitely such a wonderful time to hear about all the incredible work that Milaneth and Rika are doing. So congratulations to you both, ladies. We're so inspired about what you do and what you've accomplished.
Thanks, absolutely. Presley. And my correction, May Employee of the Month. June staying tuned for next month.
Starting early.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Presley. Our Life in the USA segment is all about helping you feel prepared for the everyday details of your new life. Today, we're focusing on transportation. Getting around the US can look different, depending on where you live. So to walk us through the key things to consider, I'd like to welcome Nick from our International Employee Supervisor team. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Melissa. Thanks for having me. Super excited to cover this today. So let's just dive right into it. So transportation is a critical part of daily life in the U.S. and it impacts your ability to get to work, run errands, and settle into your new community. Unlike many countries, the public transportation is not always reliable and widely available in the U.S. So planning ahead is key. Uh, our team is here to provide you with full circle support to give you a guide for your transportation options and help you as you arrive. So let's start by looking at public transportation and what you can expect in different U.S. cities. Public transportation systems vary widely across the U.S. Some cities offer reliable options, while others have very limited services. Large metro areas like New York, Chicago, and Boston often have subways, buses, trains that run frequently. Smaller cities and rural areas may only have a few bus routes with limited hours, which can make commuting more challenging. In the US, taxis are not common outside of the big cities. While apps like Uber and Lyft are available in many places, they can be expensive and unavailable in those rural areas. A key takeaway for everyone is that public transportation in the US can be very different depending on where you live. Some cities have strong systems, but many have limited options, so planning ahead is essential. For many international nurses, public transportation may be difficult. May not be reliable enough for daily commuting, and that's why car ownership often is the most practical choice. A car allows you to control your commute, work differential shifts, and access grocery stores, schools, and healthcare. Some factors to consider before buying a car are cost, financing and loan options, insurance, gas, and maintenance expenses, whether you have a U.S. driver's license or need to apply for one. Having a car is an investment, but in many locations, it is necessary to ensure you can get to work on time. One key takeaway is that while buying a car is a big financial step, it is often the most dependable way to manage life in the U.S.
Nick, if I could interject, I definitely do believe like having a car is definitely dependable. I mean, if I could think back to my time, like when I first came to the United States, my goal was, not to drive. I was scared of driving. So I thought I would be like the perfect passenger princess, right? But then that was pre-COVID. So fares were fairly reasonable. Then after COVID, the prices kind of went up. So it was a little bit hard and expensive for me to get, to and fro work. So I was like, okay, let me get the fare aside and, get my driver's license and get me a car. And surprisingly, what I was paying for like Uber was, and what I paid for like my monthly car note. So my monthly car note was less than what I would pay for Uber. So sometimes it really does depend, like you mentioned earlier, on the location for whether you decide to get a vehicle, whether it's better to get a vehicle or it is better to go the public transportation route. So I would say it's probably better to be safe than sorry. So if you're scared of driving, still go get that license. You may never know. Back to you, Nick.
Yeah, and for many of our international nurses, public transportation, with the ownership of the car is definitely the best way to go. So let's see. So if you decide that owning a car is the best option for you, we should definitely explore these different ways that you can purchase a car in the U.S. There are multiple ways to buy cars in the U.S. depending on your budget and preferences. The first option is International Auto Source. We refer to this as IAS. This works with international nurses without U.S. credit history. This offers you a brand new car with no credit check required, provides a free rental for 45 days while you wait for your purchased car, and it delivers to all 50 states. So this is definitely a very good option for convenience, especially getting that car right after you arrive in the form of a rental. The second option here is our Advanced Credit Union. They provide auto loans for both new and used vehicles, allows you to purchase a car from any dealership and requires some processing time. So you would need to plan ahead for this. And it does not include a free rental car. So temporary transportation is needed. Again, the one really big perk on this one is that you can get a used car, so you don't necessarily have to purchase something brand new, and usually those are more affordable. You can buy a car in cash. That can be done through a dealership or private seller. This avoids loan interest, but it requires a lot more money up front. Renting a car temporarily is useful while searching for a car, but it does require a major credit card to book. And then ride sharing, obviously. So Uber, Lyft, these can be useful for the short term, but may be expensive or unavailable in some areas. So definitely, planning ahead and figuring out your best options in the area is definitely key. So owning a car means more than just buying it. You'll need a driver's license and must understand the responsibility that come with car ownership. So in the U.S., you will be required to get a local driver's license, and I'm going to cover how to get your driver's license. Most states require you to get a driver's license within a certain time frame after arrival, and that does vary by state. So once you do arrive, you can reach out to your IES and figure out, what that time frame would look like. If your state allows international driver's permit, you can use it temporarily, but you will eventually need a local license. So the steps to getting your U.S. driver's license, first is obtaining your Social Security number, which is needed for most applications, but not all of them. Again, they do vary by state. Pass a written exam and on the on-road laws for the U.S. Take a vision test, and then pass a behind-the-wheel driving test. Typically, there are associated costs with this, and these do vary by state. And you'll need to check with your local DMV for the exact prices. But typically, a written road test costs anywhere from $20 to $50. The license application fee is $30 to $90, and driving lessons, if needed, are usually $40 to $80 per session. And then here, I do want to cover some car ownership responsibilities. If you are driving a car in the U.S., you're responsible for keeping up with regular maintenance, such as oil changes, tire checks, and then also understanding U.S. driving laws and road signs, and ensuring that you have proper insurance covered required by your state. There are also different child safety laws and car seats. U.S. law requires children under the 8 years old to be in a car seat or a booster seat. Car seats must meet U.S. safety standards, which may differ for those in other countries. Even if you are using Uber, Lyft, or a taxi, you must bring a car seat for young children, as these services do not provide them. We can assist in purchasing a car seat before you arrive, and your arrival coordinator will help install that properly. Some key takeaways here is that both driving and owning a car in the U.S. come with legal responsibilities, and knowing the rules ahead of time helps keep you and your family safe. Before driving in the U.S., it is essential to have a transportation plan in place so you can get to work on time and adjust in your new life smoothly. So before you arrive, you'll need to complete a transportation declaration form. This tells you how to plan to get to work once you're in the U.S. Your options include owning a car, and as we mentioned before, that can be through IAS, Advantial, or a cash purchase, renting a car, or relying on Uber and Lyft or public transportation if available in your city. If you are unsure which option is best for you, our team can help you guide based on where you'll be living and working. Key questions to ask yourself include, is my assigned location walkable? Is public transportation reliable? Can I afford a car, or will I need financing? What's my backup plan if my first option doesn't work well? Because obviously when you do drive a car here in the U.S., there are the unexpected things such as breakdowns, flat tires, anything like that. So you'll definitely want to make sure you do have those backup plans. And just overall, it is important to have a plan in place before arriving in the U.S. to ensure that you can get to work on time. Here, we want to make sure that when you walk away from this, that you have a plan in place for your transportation before you arrive here, and being prepared ensures that you get to work reliably from day one.
Awesome, Nick. I do want to interject a little bit. So I recently learned that Uber and Lyft and taxis, they don't always provide the car seats, but in some cases, especially in larger cities, they might. So that's definitely something for healthcare professionals to know as well, and just kind of jot down that it's possible in larger cities that they might provide the car seat. But, you can always be, like I said, safe than sorry. So you could potentially bring your own if needs be.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, just to echo that, it's better to be safe than sorry. So if you are using Uber or Lyft, bringing that car seat or booster seat is definitely a must before you take those rides. And then one last thing, just a couple of things here before we wrap up. There are a few key takeaways from today's Life in the U.S. segment on transportation. So one being transportation in the U.S. varies depending on where you live. So it's important to plan ahead. In many cases, owning a car is the most reliable option for getting to work and managing your daily life. There are several ways to secure a vehicle, and each option comes with different considerations. Driving comes with responsibilities, so understanding the rules and preparing early is essential. And most importantly, having a transportation plan before you arrive sets you up for success. And as a part of our full circle support, our team will guide you through every transportation step, helping you choose the best option for your location, prepare for your commute, and feel confident getting to work from day one. Thanks, everyone. That's all I had.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for kind of running through what transportation looks like and what to expect, when a healthcare professional gets here. There are different options, like Nick said, there are car ride share services like Uber, Lyft, taxis, or you could choose to go, buying a car. We do have means to help you to do that, whether it's new or used. So there are plenty of options for you. So I definitely would suggest, making sure that you're reaching out to your assignee or recruiter so they can talk to you more about what these options look like. So thank you so much, Nick. Thank you. I learned a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. Our Nursing in the USA segment is here to help you succeed in the clinical environment. Today, we're talking about communication. It's one of the most important skills for ensuring safety and strong outcomes for our patients and your team. And so, to walk us through why it matters and how to do it well, I'd like to welcome Ashton and Brad from our Quinn team. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi. Thank you guys so much for joining today.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Of course. All right. So go ahead, please. Please tell us how communication works and what it means for a nurse in the U.S.
Absolutely, Melissa. Thank you. Communication in nursing isn't just helpful, it's essential.
All right. I will jump in for Brad while he is joining. So, communication in nursing isn't just helpful, but it is essential, right? It's really, really important. And so, when that breaks down, it can lead to really serious misunderstandings, safety issues, poor patient outcomes. So when it is done well, communication becomes one of those most powerful tools that we have for delivering safe, coordinated, and compassionate care. So, Brad, I'll hand it back over to you.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. Technology is not always our friend. As Ashton was saying, when communication is done well, it is a powerful tool that helps us deliver the safe and coordinated care that is needed. To set the stage, let's take a look at some of the core foundations that support strong communication. Some of these foundations is the role of empathy, consistency in communication, nonverbal cues, culture competency, transparency and honesty, confidentiality, and interdisciplinary communication. As nurses, empathy is a large part of our role, caring for patients day in and day out and wanting to do what is best for those patients. In caring for those patients, you want to inform those patients through consistency in your communication on what's happening with them and what the plan is. At times, you may see your patients react in nonverbal ways, and being attentive to those nonverbal cues is important. That also plays into the cultural competencies. Different cultures express themselves in different ways, and being in tune to those nonverbal cues or verbal cues when it comes to communications it's very important. Making sure that you are delivering clear and honest information that the patients understand. At times, you may have to reword or change things to help them understand. Confidentiality. HIPAA is a big thing here in the US, where private health information cannot be shared outside of the healthcare setting. Being aware of that is important. And then lastly, the interdisciplinary communication. You are working with many members of a medical team and have to be able to communicate with them effectively and efficiently through your time.
Yep, absolutely. And we're going to touch on all of these points throughout this entire segment. So, the first part we'll review is nurse to nurse, right? And even other colleagues like nurse aides, Brad was just saying, that interdisciplinary communication. So, nursing is a team sport, right? I don't know how many times I have that conversation with our nurses. You just have to be able to rely on your team, the other nurses you're working with, but they also need to rely on you, right? So, you have to be able to work well together and communicate during your entire shift. And so without communication, the team could completely fall apart. And that's not what we want for our patients. So building those relationships can take some time. So you could do things like offering to help others, right? And thank others for helping you, right? Communication is two-way street. Avoid interrupting, take accountability, apologize when necessary, and have manners, right? Please, thank you. Those things go a long way. Respond to phone calls and call lights, relatively, quickly, right? In a respectful amount of time. Speak up. No one can read your mind and you can't read theirs, right? That's why verbal communication is really, really crucial. Participate in unit or department events. Sometimes, I know in my experience, and I know Brad and I have talked about it, our team now also has food days, right? Everyone brings in something and it's just a really great bonding experience. And you get to have fun while at work, right? So it's really, really important to participate in those kinds of things. And be professional, right? The language and behaviors should remain professional at all times while you are on the job. So have personal conversations privately, right? Don't have your personal phone out in the nursing station in front of patients, families, even other colleagues, right? And conflict, right? Conflict is inevitable, right? We're humans. But there's a professional way to manage conflicts and have those difficult conversations in a professional manner. It can even happen with physicians. And so, Brad, I know you're going to touch on nurse to physician, and I'm sure we've each in our experiences have had some run-ins with some physicians.
Yep. Thanks, Ash. This is great points in the nurse to nurse communication. Now, let's talk about nurse to physician communication. Many international nurses come from areas where the hierarchy of the hospital setting looks much different than the US healthcare system. Many times, physicians are the drivers of the work that needs to be done. Here in the US, nurses have a lot of autonomy and expectations, but still work very closely with the physicians. Physicians and nurse practitioners aren't always physically on the units or in the building, so it's critical to be able to speak through them through various ways. Some of those ways may be from paging them. sending them messages through an internal system, or phone calls. Remember, you are a critical part of the healthcare team, and they can't do what they do without the nurses. Collaboration between the provider and nurse leads to a better patient outcomes. One good way to speak with physicians when you're needing to contact them is to use the SBAR format. Ashton, can you tell us a little bit about the SBAR?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like in nursing school, that's like all we heard is like use SBAR, use SBAR. And so for those that aren't aware, so SBAR is an acronym that stands for situation, background, assessment, and recommendation. And so it is designed to just standardize communication between providers and nurses to improve accuracy and efficiency with that communication. And so just fun fact, so the SBAR was actually created by the US Navy and was later adapted in the 1990s by the healthcare system. So I thought that was kind of cool. And it is widely used all over the US in any healthcare system. It's very well known. And so it is and will be expected for you guys to adapt this version of communication. And so here on the screen, you'll see an example, a great example that we found from the Institute of Healthcare Improvement. And so as you can see, so situation. So basically, what are you calling about, right? You want to ID yourself, the unit you're calling from, the patient you're calling for, and room number, and briefly state the problem, right? When it happens, when it started, and how severe. So in the example, it shows that, Dr. Jones, this is Sharon Smith calling from the CCU. I have Mr. Holloway in room 217, a 56-year-old man who looks pale, sweaty, feels confused and weak, and is complaining of chest pressure, right? So great background there, or situation. So background. So this is when you want to include the patient history related to the situation, the admitting diagnosis, when they were admitted, current meds, including, the PO meds, IV meds, any meds that they're on, their allergies, and recent lab results, including the date and time they were done, recent vital signs assessment details, any relevant, clinical info. So in the example, the background states he has a history of hypertension, was admitted for a GI bleed, received 2 units. His last crit 2 hours ago was 31. And the vital signs were a blood pressure of 90/50 and a pulse of 120. So great background there. The assessment, right? Your assessment of the situation, right? So in the example, I think he's got an active bleed, and we can't rule out an MI, but we don't have a troponin or a recent H&H. So that's kind of leads into the recommendation, right? So what do you recommend is needed for the patient and what the patient wants? And so in the example, the recommendation that the nurse would be providing to the physician is, I like to get an EKG and labs, and I need you to evaluate him right away, right? So that's what Brad was mentioning about the autonomy, right? Our physicians aren't on site all the time. And so they really do rely on the nurses to be their senses, right? Their hands, eyes, ears, even nose sometimes, right? So they really do depend on us for them to do their job well, right? So we need to do well so they can do well.
Ashton, I think that's a great example of how to use SBAR appropriately. One thing that I often think about for individuals that are unfamiliar with SBAR is I go back 20 years ago when I started my nursing profession, and I was uncomfortable with using this and speaking with physicians. I oftentimes would write out the SBAR before I would approach the physician to make sure I had all that information together. Some other information that you might want to ask yourself, hey, is this pertinent to the SBAR? Have you seen and assessed the patient before calling the physician? Has the situation been discussed with other team members, maybe more senior nurses or the charge nurse? Have you had the opportunity to review the patient's chart and make sure that the physician that you're reaching out to is the appropriate provider? Knowing that admitting diagnosis and when they were admitted, most recent notes from both the provider and maybe previous nurses. And when you are reaching out to that physician, you want to make sure that you have the chart available to you and open. You know what the current meds are, if they have allergy, recent labs, changes in those recent labs, as well as vital signs and code status.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of things to gather to prepare for the call, right? So now we're going to talk about, you gather all this information, you made the call, right? You went through your SBAR, and let's say that the physician didn't answer, right? You had to leave a message, or you had to just page them because, that's kind of their preferred method. The next step would be, hey, now you have to wait for them to call you back, right? So you want to be ready for that return call. So you want to be available, right? Communicate with the administrator that's running the front desk, charge nurse, whoever it may be, that kind of manages when the unit phone rings, right? Because that's the number that you're going to give them for them to call back. So inform them like, hey, I called so-and-so for this patient, please let me know when they return my call. So that way they know just to automatically send it to your phone or just find you. Like all the stuff that Brad went over needs to be ready, right? Be able to, if you can, get to a computer quickly too. Make it quick, right? That's when they return your page or your message, that's when you go through the SBAR, right? So you should already have that prepared, right? Expect to take new orders, right? That's kind of what you're reaching out for, right? To give them the information you have, and the recommendation is typically a new order. And so, they can give nurses a verbal order, right? So that requires you to be able to be at a computer to put that order in for them, right? So really important to be able to have a pen ready, piece of paper, be by a computer, just be ready, be prepared.
That's great, Ashton. So we've covered nurse to nurse communication, and we've covered nurse to physician or nurse practitioner communication. So now we're going to talk about nurse to patient communication. So HCAHPS it's called the Hospital Consumer Assessment of Healthcare Providers and Systems. The first national standardized public report survey of a patient's perspective of hospital care. This is like your grade on your report card. HCAHPS are a very big thing in the U.S. healthcare system, and they are one of the 4 determinants of reimbursement, or how hospitals are paid for their services, with the 3 other areas are the outcomes, the efficiency, and the clinical process of care. So this survey is designed to produce data about the patient's perspective of the care that allow the objectives and meaningful comparison of hospitals on topics that are important to consumers, like communication. That's one of the biggest. They will rate you low if you don't provide effective and clear communication on this HCAHPS score, and therefore then the hospital will not receive as much reimbursement as they could have. Another area of this is public reporting of the survey's result in new incentives for hospitals to improve quality of care. If a hospital is scoring low on an HCAHPS in a consistent area, then the hospital knows that they need to work on that area to develop a better, effective plan to have that improved. The public reporting system serves to enhance accountability in the healthcare by increasing that transparency of the quality of the hospital care provided in return to the public investment. Every single day here in the U.S., over 6,000 of these surveys are completed, and they are viewed.
Yeah. And, just thinking about just how many patients we have in, on one unit, in one hospital, in one city total, right? It's really great that our patients do fill these out. And so they, during their stay in the hospital, right, they're anxious, they're worried, concerned, even families, right, are feeling those things. So it's really, really important to communicate with the patients and families to help them better understand what's going on, right? Because many of them, like we have medical background education, they may not. So it's really important that we're able to educate them, right, on what's going on. Sometimes the doctors or nurse practitioners kind of get in their mindset and just speak medical terminology, right? But they forget that sometimes their patients aren't at that level. They don't understand that. And so it's really important for the nurse to, be sure to educate and kind of break it down in layman terms, right? At a level that your patient and families can understand. Very, very important. And even so, at times the patients may feel embarrassed or not ask questions with their providers. And so that's another reason that, you guys as nurses spend a lot of time with the patient, right? So they probably feel more comfortable with you and confident in your ability to support them and educate them. So, they are able to be vulnerable, right, with their nurse. And so it's really crucial that you're able to, speak to them. And in addition to educating in that way, it's really important that you can explain, right, what you're doing. So, it's one thing to, again, have a patient where you're putting in an IV, right? They may not have ever got an IV in their lifetime, never even seen one, right? So they don't know what you're doing. You're taking their arm and poking it. And so it's really important that you explain, I'm cleaning your spot for your IV. This is where your medication's going to come through. And that's how it enters, right, your body. Explaining what you're doing as you're doing it, and even a little bit before, right? Letting them know as soon as you walk into the room, hey, I'm going to get some lab work from you. Instead of just walking in the room and grabbing their arm and shoving a needle in there, right? You want to be sure that you ease their anxieties and worries and concerns. And listening, right? So I know today we talked a lot about talking, right? But listening is just as important in all areas that we've talked about today. So it's a really crucial and critical life skill. You have to be able to listen to be able to be a good communicator. And so avoid finishing sentences for others, interrupting. So changing the subject, looking elsewhere other than the person speaking to you, right? So just make sure you are active listening, right? And this goes to anyone that you speak to in life, right? Really important.
So Ashton and Brad, I just wanted to ask a quick question because, communication does seem like a vital role for a nurse. You said nurse to nurse, nurse to patient, nurse to physician. But earlier, Brad mentioned something about, the healthcare professionals are coming from a different country that has different set of rules. So what I'm hearing, it's a cultural thing as well, not only in the hospital, but it also could be like their regular lifestyle, how it is in their country. And so sometimes it's a little hard to get out of what you're used to. And I believe this segment is very important for that. But it also, I'm more asking like about practical ways. So do we provide any training or courses where they could do simulation of these things so that they can get into it before they get here or after they arrive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Yes. So our healthcare professionals do complete modules related to and surrounding communication in various, settings and individuals, right? So we do support our international healthcare professionals in that sense. And that's just part of our, full circle of support in terms of making sure our, healthcare professionals are ready, right, prepared, and know what to expect.
I think you said that very well, Ashton. All right, so I'm going to go over key takeaways from our talk on communication. Communication in nursing is crucial for safety and of the staff and the patients. The healthcare team must communicate to each other for the patients to have the best outcomes possible for their hospitalization. Utilizing SBAR format when communicating with your provider for your patient is the best way to give them all the information they need accurately and efficiently. Having your information prepared before calling them and paging them is important. Communication and customer skills are a must when speaking with the patients and their loved ones. You are with your patients more than anyone else in the facility. They rely on you in so many ways, so communications is extremely important so they feel safe in your care.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ashton and Brad, for kind of walking through, how important communication is to the role and to the life as a nurse. And I just want to remind our nurses here that are with us that as a part of our full circle of support, like Ashton mentioned earlier, we do provide education, coaching, and guidance, not only for workplace communication, but for other things as well as you prepare for your journey to the United States and even after you arrive. So thank you so much, Ashton and Brad. I really do appreciate this segment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. All right, now it is time for another of our favorite segments, our featured location. We know that, many of you are from different parts of the world, preparing for your move to the US. So, you're probably wondering, where am I going to live? And what does the area look like? And what can I expect, in the location that I am moving to? So this month, we are excited to feature South Dakota, a state known for its wide landscapes, low cost of living, friendly communities, and surprisingly diverse seasons. And to guide us through everything South Dakota has to offer, please welcome Gretchen, my colleague from our account managers team here at Health Carousel. Hi, Gretchen. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. All right, so Gretchen, I do have a question for you. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our healthcare professionals are from different parts of the world. So they're trying to understand U.S. geography. I am too. So this question is for you, not for me. But so we see here on the screen, the U.S. map is separated into 4 quadrants. Can you tell us which quadrant the state of South Dakota is in?
Absolutely. We're going to be in quadrant 1, which is the top left quadrant on the screen.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, Gretchen, go ahead. Tell us more about all things South Dakota.
Absolutely. Yes. South Dakota is quite a diverse state. Plenty of opportunities. Recreation is going to be the big thing in the state. Camping, hiking, fishing, being outside as much as possible. They have an abundance of state parks. Again, just another opportunity to get outside and enjoy nature. Some of the particular landmarks, if you're interested in learning a bit about the American history, Mount Rushmore. So you can kind of see that evident on the picture here on the screen, but that's our monument here in South Dakota where we have 4 of our presidents. They're etched into stone on a hillside. So that's a very cool monument to check out. There's also some cool monuments in terms of the Native American history, which is very rich in the state. So Badlands National Park, Crazy Horse Memorial, Black Hills Monument. Plenty of opportunities to take in the history of not only America, but the state itself, the role that it's played in some of the wars, the Civil Wars, things like that. But again, I can't stress enough the recreation opportunities. That's the big thing in South Dakota. You've got the Missouri River, which runs right through the state. So again, it's just another great opportunity to get outside. You can do activities for cheap or even free. Just pop outside your front door, go on, have a picnic right by the river. So plenty of opportunities and stuff to do for the entire family. In terms of climate, like Melissa alluded to earlier, you do get to experience pretty much the 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Winter, it can get chilly, and depending on where you are in the state, the snowfall can be a lot, but it also depends year to year. Some years you may have a light snowfall, and then the next year it kind of makes up for itself. So dress for the seasons. Get a coat, sweatshirt, jacket, come prepared, but it is nice that you get to experience all 4 seasons. Yeah, so just going further, spring, again, you can see the temperature there, both in Celsius and in Fahrenheit. It is a rather temperate. So like we said, in the wintertime, it can get a little bit chilly. In the summertime, the good thing is you're not going to experience those high where between probably mid 60s to maybe mid 70s in some places. But again, it's very temperate, and you get to experience all 4 seasons. Just moving along through the 4 seasons of the calendar. So in summer, again, you can kind of see this is where we creep up a little bit, anywhere from 60 degrees to 86. Again, that's just a range. This is a good picture, though, of Badlands National Park, which we mentioned is a cool place that you could experience and tour if you are selected and you work in South Dakota. But again, depending on where you are, some places are more of a dry, arid climate. As evident by this picture, and some are more lush where you're going to get those green spaces, the waterfalls, a lot of those recreation opportunities. So you kind of see different diverse landscapes that run along with the 4 seasons. And then our fall season here kind of fall back down into those temperature ranges more similar to the springtime. So again, you're getting anywhere between, say, 30s to 70s, depending on where you are. Again, I'm speaking in Fahrenheit, but the nice thing is, again, I can't say it enough, but you get to experience all 4 seasons. You have those moderate to temperate climates, with maybe some extremes depending on the snowfall or the heat during that season of the year. But great place to be, get outside, experience it, and as always, just come prepared with what you're wearing. And then cost of living, the really, really nice thing about South Dakota is they rank very highly in terms of the cost of living scale. They rank well above a lot of other states in America. So for example, here in this table, we have South Dakota compared to New York and California, which are 2 states on the coast, New York on the East Coast and California on the West. You can see in South Dakota, they're 8% below the national average. It's a 92 cost of living index, which is well below that of New York and California. Again, you can kind of see it broken down what your cost would be by housing, your monthly rent, your groceries, what would a gallon of milk cost? That's our benchmark. What would a carton of eggs cost? And again, you can kind of see the theme here in South Dakota. It's less than what you would see in New York or California. Again, same with transportation. And as we talked about previously in the section with Melissa and Nick, getting your own car for transportation purposes is going to be the way to go in South Dakota. And a gallon of gas is not too bad. And then again, public transportation. There is some public transportation in terms of buses, but the routes are a little bit unreliable. But again, here, only $50 a month for public transport compared to even 2 or 3 times that in New York or California.
The cost of living sounds really good over there in South Dakota. I'm seeing how the prices are probably similar to here in Cincinnati. So it's pretty affordable. And I also loved where you talked about the recreational places. Those pictures were beautiful. And being able to like experience all the 4 seasons, you get a touch of what America is like in South Dakota, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Gretchen, thank you so much for taking the time, to speak about South Dakota with us today. Honestly, all I heard was I gotta move. I'm just kidding, but it does really sound like a really nice place. So thank you so much for, taking the time to give us a great look into life in South Dakota. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Now, let's dive into the July Visa Bulletin. It's a great way to help you to understand where things stand. Each month, we share the latest updates and remind you of the steps that you can take while you wait. So to walk us through everything you need to know, here's Heather, our Manager of Legal Assistance, to cover the July Visa Bulletin. Hi, Heather. Welcome, welcome. Oh, Heather, I am not hearing you. I'm so sorry.
That is my fault. I'm bad with technology, but thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Aren't we all? Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, well, some good news for the July Visa Bulletin is that most EB3 visa categories did see some forward movement, with the exception of the Philippines. So the Philippines is still sitting at, February 8th, 2023. But both the rest of the world and Mexico saw about a 2-month movement. So they're sitting at April 1st, 2023. And then China and India both saw about a week of forward movement. So if you see, India is sitting at April 22nd, 2013, and China is sitting at December 1st, 2020. So almost all categories saw movement. It's always good to see movement. We do want to stress that, though there is retro Russian, we want you to keep hope. You're going to get your place in line. You need to use this time to get things ready, to study for your English, just get ready. Spend time with your family, because once you're in the United States, you might not get to go home for a while. So spend some time with your family, and also our full circle of support is here to guide you through each step of the process.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Heather, for sharing, a little bit about the changes, in the July Visa Bulletin. We know it's something that our healthcare professionals do look forward to each month. But, as Heather mentioned, as you are waiting for your priority date to become current, just take the time to do your due diligence with getting your documents in, completing your required exams, and, just ensuring that you're making time as well for your family that you might not be able to bring with you, and also maybe go sightseeing in your country. Maybe there's certain things that in your country that you haven't gotten a chance to because you've always been working. So this will also be a good time for you to learn more about your country before you come over to make your home here in the United States. So thank you so much for that, Heather. I do want to keep you on a little bit longer, Heather, because as you may know, our comment feature is off as we are trying to figure things out so that we can answer the questions for our candidates and just ensure that they're getting all the right information that they need as they prepare for their journey to the United States. So I would like for you to help me in answering a few frequently asked questions, okay?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you so much. All right. So to get going, I'll go ahead and pull up our first question. So this question, it's asked frequently, like, when will my NVC docs be submitted? So usually the NVC docs are submitted once the NVC, that's the National Visa Center, once they issue your fee bills and you have completed your DS-260. Now, however, due to retrogression and the backlog of priority dates, those with a more recent priority dates of say 2024 and 2025 may be delayed in receiving their fee bills. And those next steps, of course, will take place once your priority date gets closer to current. All right.
And can I interject there? I think it would be really helpful for our the people on the call to use the Visa Reciprocity website. It's a Department of State website. You can go on there and find your country and know what documents you're going to need for the NVC process. That way you're not wasting time or money getting the wrong document. We often get the incorrect documents for countries like Canada. So Canada, it's just a great resource. So please use that website before you get any NVC documents.
And if you don't mind, just repeat the website again, just for those that haven't heard.
Sure. You can just Google Visa Reciprocity and then look for the Department of State website. The Department of State, the NVC, it's the same thing. So look for that website. It's going to be your best resource.
Awesome. That's a cool tip, Heather. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Our next question. When can I attend my embassy interview?
You can attend your embassy interview once your priority date is current. You have a facility selection, which is very important, and the embassy has scheduled you for an embassy interview. I will point out that Manila and Kathmandu are two of the only embassies that I know of that will allow you to schedule your immigrant-based interview. And by self-scheduling, the rest are scheduled for you on your behalf.
Okay, thank you. Next question. When will my priority date be current? So unfortunately, we are unable to predict the movements of the priority dates, but as you've seen earlier through the review of the visa bulletin, we do monitor it closely, and we will, update our healthcare professionals in our program as their priority date becomes current. We will be monitoring it closely and, preparing you, for eventually when your priority date becomes current. Do you have anything to add to that, Heather?
I would say that you can go to the Visa Bulletin website on your own and sign up for email updates. So you will get a handy dandy email update anytime the new Visa Bulletin is published. So I think that's always a great resource. You don't have to wait for an update from us.
Awesome. Well, it looks like a lot of things. I won't say a lot, but there are certain things that nurses can definitely look up on their own. But definitely reach out to your current assignee or your recruiter for information, and to have them share with you like resources, so that you can monitor your progress on your own. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
All right. Now, our next question, how long will the process take?
This is a very, very popular question. And honestly, it's going to vary. It's going to vary based on visa ability and the applicant's ability to meet their expectations or their requirements to emigrate. And regardless of visa retrogression, it can be a very long process. So I think, just as I mentioned earlier, this is the time that you're going to need to spend getting ready. So when your priority date is current, you can arrive. That includes studying and taking your English exam, getting your visa screen, studying about the United States. Once you get selected, or even before you get selected, you're going to want to look up where you're interviewing at and see if you want to live there. You have to get all your documents in order. So I just want to stress that even if you are waiting for a long time, you need to use that time wisely to get ready for when your priority date does become current.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that is a good segue to our next question about any advice on how to prepare for life in the USA. So like Heather said, just make sure that you're getting your docs together, completing exams. We can't stress it enough. These are very important, to put towards your progress, your immigration progress as you're waiting for your priority date to become current. Use our resources as well. If you go on our website, passportusa.com, we do have a resource center with a lot of information about locations, about, some of the benefits that we offer, things like that, and how to, prepare while waiting for your priority date to become current. So yeah, just keep on, just keep on keeping on. Just hang in there. Just get everything that you need to, get done, completed, get your checklist together, and we'll be waiting with you.
Perfect.
Now, next question. When will I interview with U.S. hospitals?
Right, you're going to interview sometime after your I-140 petition has been approved. It does depend on any delays that you may have, but generally speaking, you're going to start interviewing after that approval.
Okay, wonderful. And then what is Health Carousel's work-study program? So here at Health Carousel, our goal is to support our healthcare professionals as much as we can through the immigration process and while you're also working in the United States. So we try to provide you with the right building blocks for you to catapult into your career as a USRN. And so, during the contracted period, we do provide you with development programs and things like that. And then, of course, if you do a second assignment with us, we are fully able to sponsor your advanced degrees. So some of you may be coming from countries where you only have like a diploma in general nursing, or you have your BSN, but you want a path into, you have a certain goal where you want to take your career to, and it requires you, to go higher in your education. And so our work and study program is pretty flexible in providing you with a good working schedule and a scholarship program to complete your advanced degree. We also have like bridging programs with the partner universities that we're working with as well. So if you have a diploma, you want to get a MSN, that's your pathway, that's a goal. We have a BSN, MSN bridging, MSN DNP, and things like that. So I definitely would encourage you to reach out to your current assignee or a recruiter so that they can give you more information about our work and study program. And also, like I said, passportusa.com, we do have a wonderful resource center that might have some information about the work study program as well. All right. Well, Heather, I really do appreciate you taking the time today to go over the July visa bulletin and to answer some of the frequently asked questions for our healthcare professionals. I really, truly, hopefully believe that this was a good, segment for them. And, like I mentioned earlier, if you do have more questions, you know where to reach out to. Thank you, Heather, for your time today.
Thank you, Melissa.
Grace, bye-bye. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our June live broadcast. It was a pleasure to share with you all the great, cool tips and information that we had about life in the United States and how transportation works, nursing in the United States, and how communication is important to your role as a nurse. And then we also went over South Dakota as a wonderful place where you could potentially call home when you get here to the United States. So thank you again. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll look forward to you tuning in for our next one. Bye, everyone.